Welcome to the Squad Games Podcast. Squad Games Podcast.
Welcome to another Squad Games Podcast. Today, I'm your host, Dakotah, with my co-host, Giacomo. We have Jeshua over here, and we have Albus. He's here saying hi. Today, we're going to be talking about Raveners. Let me put him down without him ripping out my earphones.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jeshua, you are currently ranked number 5th in the world in the competitive ITC tracking boards. I don't think they've dropped Tacoma yet, and when they do, I suspect that you might jump all the way to 2nd.
I think it would put me at 3rd. So Ryan Slater's got another score, and it brought him to 2nd handedly.
Okay, all right. So it'll bring you up to 3rd, passing your father, who won the ITC last year. And today, we're talking to you because you just won a 47-person event with Raveners, and you went 6-0 at Midsummer Mayhem?
I went 5-0-1.
Yes.
5-0-1. You tied a game?
I tied my last game on stream. Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. Speaking of which, if you guys want to see that game, you can catch it on our Twitch. We had a little bit of spotty coverage, so might be a little poor, but we intend on uploading those to YouTube here soon and shortly. So if you want to see Jeshua, absolutely. We actually didn't pull Jeshua on stream because when he beat his father, I was relatively sure that he could probably make it the rest of the way. And I was like, I'm not going to pull Jeshua up here on stream because he's probably going to be the last game. I don't want to see Raveners twice. I don't want to see Raveners embarrass somebody twice. So Kellen, who's also your teammate, ended up playing against you on that final round with Brood Brothers. That seemed to be your hardest matchup because you kind of smashed Hunterclade and a bunch of other teams on your way to victory. What made Brood Brothers such a difficult matchup for you to tie?
So I think one of the more important factors for Raveners and success rate is the actual boards you get put on. They favor the long boards, the hot dog boards, much more than the hamburger boards because the tunnel gets into your opponent's territory much faster. So the distance never changes depending on what board you're playing. So it's always one on your kill zone edge and then holding within 5 each turn. So on a hot dog board, that's going to reach the center line turn 2, whereas it takes 3 turns to get past the center line with a hamburger board.
Gotcha.
And then when I was playing against Kellen, we played on a hamburger board. So it kind of slowed things down.
That's fair. So, if anyone doesn't know what hamburger and hot dog and nacho boards are, those are some of our very first podcast episodes we've ever made, 3 years ago. And that's back when there was different types of deployment boards. Deployment on boards, we kind of named them foodified, and they kind of went a little viral according to our community. Everyone else thinks we're dumb. So, but today we're going to be talking to everyone here, how to win, right? Now, Jeshua, you're an expert. I found this team to be one of the more fun teams that I've played, personally. I think Sanctifiers is a lot of fun to play too, but they're less fun when you look at your opponent in the eyes and you realize that they're not having fun. At least when you're playing Raveners, you can tell everyone's having fun. The only time that they're not having fun is when they can't shoot anything because there's no Raveners on the table. How often do you find yourself having 0 Raveners on the table?
I've never had 0 Raveners on the table.
Well, that's the thing, It's something for everyone to remember. Well, you've also haven't been tabled, right? So that's a good thing.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So, Jess, do you have how often do you take the warrior? Let's start with kind of how the team is selected. And do you ever take the warrior? Is it worth buying a whole nother, $285 box on eBay to try and find another one of these things?
Yeah, so I've thought about matchups where you could take the warrior. I've never selected him yet. The lethal 5 seems like it could be interesting, but I feel like you generally just always take the 5 specialists, the leader and then the 4 specialists.
Okay.
I don't see. I could potentially see an argument for taking the warrior instead of like the venom spitter into Felgor. But even then, the venom spitter only doesn't have lethal 5, and you only get the lethal 5 on the warrior if they're wounded, which can be tricky to do. You almost have to save your firefight ploys for it. So I think it's really like hard to utilize the warrior. Everyone's just better.
Fair. I mean, I don't disagree. And I don't think our original take was we disagreed either.
Yeah.
Did you always start all the table with the same 2 operatives, or did it change via matchup? Did you find yourself running the same habits that you would find success with? What was your main operatives that you started with on the table?
Yeah, so I think for the tournament, I had the same 2 operatives on the table every single round. You basically always, for your first deployment group, put down the prime and then the venom spitter, and then everyone else goes in the tunnel. And I've thought about changing this up a bit, but what I did is my prime would always defend the home point because he has a 3-inch, essentially a grizzly mark, which is within 3 inches. It costs an additional APL to do mission actions, and you lose an APL for control. And you cannot reroll within 3 inches. So he's like a very good defensive model for your home point.
Mm-hmm. And
then the venom spitter, the reason I don't like putting him in the burrow is because he loses the benefits of his big distending stack if he goes in there.
That's fair. Now, did you find yourself? There's a lot of ways that you can I guess we can kind of talk about these 2 operatives first and foremost, because we've kind of brought them up, and we can kind of go through the other ones. You kind of kept your prime back. Your prime is also really beneficial for giving you more CP.
Correct.
And that grizzly mark, which is fantastic. And also, if anyone gets close to your home objective, you can pretty much kill practically almost any model in the game. Are you afraid of the Shrive Talon? Most people say it's like the thing of don't fight and charge the Shrive Talon.
Yeah, so I played against Legionary actually, and the Shrive Talon did his basic move up, mark the point, all the Shrive Talon shenanigans. My solution was I didn't fight him. I came out of the tunnel with the Fell Talon, and he has a Toxic Lunge, which is you pick an operative within 2 inches, and they take D3+2 and gain a poison token. So I popped out the tunnel in control range, I poisoned him, then I sat there, and then I counteract poisoned him again. And then I think I did D3+1 when I came out of the burrow as well. So essentially it was 3D3+4 damage before I fought.
Well, yeah, I mean, that happens. Now, can you explain to people that are just learning how to play Raveners or wanting to play Raveners how you were applying this poison?
So the tunnel, it was turn 3, had each turning point moved it just basically straight towards the center of the board. So it was on the middle objective. And what I did was I came out of the objective, and there's also a firefight ploy for when you come into or out of the tunnel, you can do D3+1 to an operative in control range, or I think it's any operative in control range. So I did that, and then with the Fell Talon, he has an action, Toxic Plunge, where you can select one operative within 2 inches, regardless of whether or not you're in control range or on conceal or engage. And they take D3+2 damage, and they gain a poison token. And what the poison token does is whenever they activate, they take D3 damage. So I did the Toxic Lunge, and then I went to counteract, and I did the Toxic Lunge again. So essentially, to deal with the Shrive Talon, I just stacked a ton of mortal wounds or damage before I fought him.
Amazing, and I think that's called Burrowing Strike. For anyone who's asking or thinking or wanting to do the same kind of thing. So you kind of cheesed his health down a little bit before you're like, all right, I'm going to take a little bit of damage and I'm going to nuke you into outer space. Do you find yourself using their silent tails a lot, or their tail weapons?
Yeah, the tail weapons. I think they're useful situationally. I don't rely on them, but they come up every now and then. Where if I can't come out of the burrow in control or tunnel in control range and get a safe charge or something, I can pop out behind cover and conceal, and then get the free tail whip shot. It's generally only useful if I'm trying to get an implant off, or I have 2 little wounds to charge someone.
Okay. that was my other question. Did you always take implant? Because I took implant against Giacomo, and I think implant is really, really good on the team. I
Yes.
thoroughly enjoyed it. Did you use any of their other ploys, their tacks to secure any victories?
Yeah, so I think that I actually ran overrun for most of the tournament. I took implant twice. And I think it's more matchup dependent than anything. I took implant into Aquilons and Legionary, and then overrun into Inquisition, Brood Brothers, Hunter Clade, and what was the last one? Chaos Cold. And I think what matters most there is into elites. You have 5-on-3s, 4-5, and ceaseless if you're on the tunnel. But unless you have damage beforehand, that generally won't kill an elite. So I go for the implant against elites because you can't reliably kill them in one go with a fight. And overrun's hard to score because if you're committing too hard on the aggression, elites do have enough damage output to remove the big Ravener dudes. So against teams that have like 0 melee options, or against elites, I like implants because you can bring them down to like 1 wound and leave them implanted, and they can't really do anything to you, and they're just scoring you points the rest of the game.
That's fair. There's a friend of mine thinking of bringing Raveners to Nova, right? Or the Inquisition, right? And he doesn't seem to like 5 activations very much, right?
Right.
I know that you've been really playing a lot of elites at this edition, right?
Right.
What has made, do you like 5 activations? What makes this team different than running, let's say, like a horde? And does it feel like you only have 5 activations when you have a lot of counteract?
So yeah, I think that the difference between playing a team like Raveners or a different elite team where you feel like you don't have many activations is the counteractions on Raveners are very strong because you can counteract for free or counteract do the burrow action for free unless you're doing a mission action, which comes into a play a lot. Generally, it just means that like you can wait your opponent out, and if they move close to you at all, you can come out of the burrow in control range and either just sit there or fight them and get kills all the time. And I think the team is very mission dependent. I think they're probably more mission dependent than board dependent, I'd say. Because if they are playing a mission where they need to remain on the board at the end of the turn, they're going to struggle. Because what I like to do is just use my counteractions to come in and out of the burrow over and over again, like whack-a-mole.
Okay. What did you think of Orb? And do you think Orb is going to be a good mission for Raveners? Personally, I don't like Orb. I think I talked to Giacomo about this in the crit op wise. I don't think, while it's fun, I don't think that we're playing Unreal Tournament, you know? Doesn't make sense to pass an orb back and forth personally. And also points denial is not something I think is necessarily healthy. Do you remember Orb by chance?
You're going to have to educate me because I'm an uneducated loser.
Okay.
So with Orb, there the active objective keeps moving around the board. That's the gist of it. We can pull out the full one in a second. But
yes.
So let's say your opponent puts it on their side. You know, would you see yourself being able to get that objective? Something like that, right? Is that what you're kind of referring to when you're saying mission dependent?
What I'm referring to when I say mission dependent is they're a very aggressive team. So if it's, let's say, coordinates or sabotage where you need to reach your opponent's home point, by turns 3 and 4, you will always be able to get that point. I more so mean that it's mission dependent. Like if you need to control a turn, like if it's transmission or power surge, they're going to dominate because your opponents are going to have to either move on the point to control it, or if they don't, when you're before their last activation, you just come out on the point. So since you can wait your opponent out and then like last activations, just bring a 20 Moon Rabbiter with 3 APL onto an objective to control a point without taking any damage, I think they dominate on the controlling crit ops. But if it's a mission like Secure, where they can just tap the point and run away, and if you need to, and like I said on counteracts, if you use the free burrow, you cannot do a mission action. So if you're trying to hide off the board to stay safe, you can't get the objective, and if you're on the board to get the objective, you'll die.
So Secure, okay. What about loot?
I think that loot, if you position right, is a very good crit op for Raveners, because what you can do is, instead of putting 3 operatives in the tunnel turn 1, you put 2 operatives in the tunnel, or for one of your activations turn 1, you just bring one of the guys you put in the tunnel out of tunnel, and you set them up somewhere where they're within a move of the objective, and then whether or not you win initiative, you can move on the objective, also on the tunnel, loot it, and then hide. So I think loot's an exception because it allows you to hide after you've done the mission action, because you scored immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to rely to the end of turn. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. So the new crit op, one of the new crit ops, Orb, right? It says at the
Right.
start of the battle, the center objective marker has the Orb token. If the so you can spend a 1 AP action to move the orb. If the active operative controls the marker that has the orb token, move that token as falls. If the center marker has it, move it to either player's objective, your choice. If a player's objective marker has it, move it to the center marker. You can't do it in control range, blah, 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 blah. Victory. At the end of each turning point, after the first, for each operative objective marker that friendly operatives control that doesn't have the orb token, you score 1 VP. So essentially, you kind of have to. This really favors out activations, because if you pass it just to your, it's probably bad for Raveners now that I'm rereading it. I haven't seen it in a while.
I think the problem with that mission is it's just going to be very low scoring, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of turning points where both players just get 1 point.
I would agree. But talking about that, there's another cool, isn't there Dominate seems pretty cool. They have Seek and Destroy, right? Raveners? They have Infiltration, Seek and Destroy?
They have Infiltration and Seek and Destroy. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dominate seems pretty decent. The first time an enemy operative is incapacitated by a friendly operative, each time a friendly operative incapacitates an enemy operative, that friendly operative gains 1 of your Dominate tokens. At the end of the 3rd and 4th turning point, you can move a Dominate tokens from your friendly operatives that aren't incapacitated. For each that you remove, score 1 VP. You cannot score more than 3 from this tac op per turning point, right? Seems like it might be hard to max, right? But it does seem like if your Venom Spitter's popping off, you can just, if he's killed like 3 models by the middle turning point 2, you could just burrow him off the board and then just take off the 3 points.
Yeah, so to get into Ravener's playstyle a little bit more, since, like I mentioned before, if you're playing on a longer board that you can't move the tunnel up as quickly, they're going to be very strong turns 3 and 4, but kind of weak turns 1 and 2. So what generally ends up happening is I give up a decent point lead to my opponent turns 1 and 2. I'll get like 1 on the crit op and sometimes 0 on the attack op and like no kills turns 1 and 2. And then after that, they swing into turns 3 and 4 really heavy, denying my opponent as many points as possible, and then like maxing the crit and attack op after that. So for Raveners, attack op like Dominate, where you only need to score at turns 3 and 4, seems very strong and impressive.
Okay.
That's my impression of it.
I think
there's some cool stuff with the Ravener. With the Ravener Venom Spitter. You could descend Dorsal Sack on your counter action, and basically charge up for the next turning point. Or you could. There's another cool thing that I saw with them. Since his head sticks out so far forward, you could be on one side of a stronghold, and then your model's head is on the other side of the wall, looking into strongholds that you typically wouldn't be able to see with pretty much any other model. You could like see around corners and stuff.
Yeah, he plays peekaboo with strongholds.
Yeah, and that is one of the gnarliest guns that Kill Team has, right? Like especially if it's descended. How often did you surprise your opponents with the Venom Spitter, and what specifically do you look for to do you look for like blasts? Do you look for just taking off one dude and then like running away and going into a hole? like, because they have 3 EPL, like, how do you use this operative specifically to find success with?
So I like I said, I start him on the board, and I'll move him somewhere where he can reach the middle objective within a move. And like turn 1, he moves up, descends a stack, just sits there, and I'll try and have him positioned on the tunnel, or part of his base is on the tunnel. So if somehow my opponent can get to him, he'll have either the option to fight first, or he'll have relentless defense saves. And then he kind of is just a threat model. I think I only actually used him to shoot like opportunistic aggressive attacks 2 or 3 times in the tournament. But he's just a threat, and if my opponent doesn't, he like responds to the threat by not giving me options, then what I'll do is I'll go in the tunnel, and then I can later come out on the opposite side on the board when the tunnel's gone farther up, and he can come out then and just start shooting everyone.
Yeah,
So he's more of a threat for too, and then later on he comes out on the other side.
Yeah, because then he could unburrow, then use descend dorsal sack, and then make a really big shot at the end of the turning point, and then he could counteract and go back into the hole, right?
Right.
Yeah, or if he's safe, then he could counteract and descend that dorsal sack again. It's crazy. Giacomo, do you have any questions about Raveners or anything else thus far before we go on to some of these other guys?
Not that come to my head. I got to see him play it live, and I mean, one of the things I noticed was a lot of the hit and run tactics. So there'd be times where he just pop up with, like, let's say the terror scythe, hit something and then disappear. I saw that a lot, until he had to fight like a big creature. Then that's it's a little different. But I just really like the trimmer scythe. I think that guy's rad.
Yeah. For example, what I like to do once the tunnel, like turn 3, is just in my opponent's face, I can pay a CP in the strategy phase to, I don't know what the ploy is called, but it lets me do a free burrow action, either go into or come out of. So I can come out of the burrow in control range of operatives in the strategy phase. So I won initiative on turn 3 against Kellen. So I paid to come out of the burrow with Fell Talon in the control range of 2 dudes. And then on my activation, I just fought both of them and hit the tunnel.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And it was one of those like, wow. So to my knowledge, from what I just have seen players play this, it's very much hit and run tactics all around, which is I think that's the first time I've really seen a team do that. I don't really count. What are they called? The short men.
Oh, ratlings? Wait, what?
Yeah, because they kind of do more hit and run where they shoot and then either they disappear.
They more just run. Their dog is like run.
Yeah, they don't really hit. This is the first team that could be very aggressive with hit and run and actually do it really well.
Yeah, I think they rely a lot on non-reciprocal damage.
Yeah, easily, especially with the 5-up save, right?
Yeah, and what's disgusting is that when they take damage, they have the piece of equipment that heals them, right? And then and you could go into your tunnel and heal 2 turns in a row if you really need to, before you come out and smack something. Speaking of equipment, since I brought it up, is it match dependent? Do you take just faction? What equipment do you find yourself taking more often? And when do you change your options to take? Is it just specific maps? Is it specific matches? What do you think?
So there are 2 equipment pieces that I always take. I also don't know the names for these, but I always take the one that heals you for D3 when you activate.
Metamorphic Flesh.
That one, and then I always take the one where if an operative is within 5 inches of your tunnel, you can reroll your initiative. I always take those 2. Yeah, Heightened Senses and Metamorphic Flesh. And so I always take those 2. And then if a team has just generally shooting of any kind, then I take the double retain cover saves.
So you take Chromatospore Camouflage.
Yes. And then I almost never take Acid Blood, actually, because since the team relies on implants a decent amount of the time, if you take Acid Blood, your opponent can just try to kill themselves, and then you won't get points.
That's true.
I guess that makes sense. But if you're taking Overrun, then you think about Acid Blood, right?
Yeah, Overrun, or if you're just playing into teams that you kind of need the breakpoints for, like into Elites, Overrun could, or not Overrun, Acid Blood could be good, because the 14 wound breakpoint is kind of funky for the Raveners.
What about Okay, I saw you take a barricade in your final match against Brood Brothers. Now, against shooty teams, do you find yourself taking like barricades, or do you find yourself taking frag grenades or crack grenades? How often do you find yourself taking like heavy barricades?
Yeah, so I take heavy barricades a decent amount of the time if there's a board that doesn't provide me an option to move up to threaten the middle objective safely. So let's say there's a board with light cover that offers me the choice to stage for the middle point, but no heavy cover, then I'll take a heavy barricade. I never see myself taking grenades just because the team doesn't have a way to reroll in shooting, only in melee. So grenades are really dicey. And then for In the Dark, I think you generally just always take barricades for In the Dark if you need them. Because it's open, there's no terrain to hide behind unless you're just sitting behind a wall. But I barricades on In the Dark and then heavy barricades on boards so that you can stage up and threaten the middle point.
Interesting thing. I think this team is better on Into the Dark than they are on.
I would agree.
Focus.
I think they're really disgusting on In the Dark.
Yeah, I think it's really crazy.
Right,
and for me,
mission actions.
Jeshua,
doors.
yeah, Jeshua, you can tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm just an old head now at this point, right? Apparently, I don't get to play in tournaments anymore. It's that forever DM in me, forever TOing. It's their ploy that allows them to always have light cover on their tunnels. So essentially, if you're playing against a team that doesn't have Seek or Seek Light, you kind of just get to go wherever you want, and then you can really focus on getting to the other side of the table or going into every single room possible and just coming out whenever, wherever, and dominating. That's one of the things that I've liked the most about Raveners is that you can just like ignore parts of the game, especially. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think the two main things that make them disgusting on In the Dark is what you mentioned, to the fact that they can just have cover wherever they want. You're like, oh, this guy's in the open. Let me just tunnel over there and pay for the light cover. Yeah, it's just super cover.
Yeah, if you're on your tunnel, there's no way that somebody can break the. You have to get within 2 inches. It's crazy.
Or have Seek Light, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I only played on In the Dark once for the tournament. It definitely would have been nice to play on more In the Dark because they can also the tunnel just goes underneath walls. You just tunnel underneath them, so you don't have to worry about doors ever.
Yeah,
I'm just saying you had a 50% chance to play on Into the Dark the entire time, and you supposedly
lost
got.
50-50s.
You did.
Wow,
you did lose 5.
That is kind of nuts, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty knuck and futz,
Yeah, what an anomaly.
Giacomo, you've played against Raveners now, and when you played against them, what did you find the hard? Because I've seen a lot of commentary on people's Discords, seen a lot of people commentary on from other content creators that do not think this team is good or do not think this team is strong. And if you come out to the West Coast, our scene is not weak, right? We have a very strong scene. And you were able to defeat tons of people, right? Including Inquisition, Hunterclade, who some people are thinking are really, really good now, really high mental load, but really good. You beat Legionary. Did you beat AOD?
I didn't play against AOD. Actually, so here's the thing. That was technically a 7-round tournament for me because I don't know if you guys noticed, I played a game with a friend for lunch. Instead of taking my lunch like a normal human being, I played a kill team game. Speed like a blitz kill team game.
I like that. Finish it in an hour.
And for that, I played against AOD and I won that one.
Oh, there you go.
That feels right.
Yeah. So G, what was your feeling and like also watching this team be played by Jeshua? I mean, you saw me play it for the very first time, like ever, right? And then like Jeshua obviously is playing it with a ton of skill. What do you think is making this team so dominant currently?
It's what they can do and how fast they hit and then disappear, so you can't get any shots back. So one thing I noticed that Kellen had to do was he had to give Jesh opportunities to go hunt something, because if he didn't, then he was going to go take points. There was a lot of setup for the first few turns. It was all just setup. Because if he didn't, then if he just leaves little dudes out, then one of the Raveners kills him, then disappears, and it's no problem, right? You have to give him these choices where he doesn't necessarily want to make them, but you force them into it. Otherwise, you really don't shoot at these things. Like, and when he had the Patriarch holding that one spot, that was like really critical too, because that's one of the few models that can take a hit and it can't just run away. It can fight back pretty well. That's what I noticed in the games, or at least in the one game I was watching.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this team played multiple times at events now. I've ran a couple really large events since they've come out. And like, I've seen them dominate Goremongers. I've seen them pretty much beat everyone in the meta. I've heard that they lose to the Inquisition, except you pulled Power Surge against the Inquisition at our event. Jeshua, do you think that they just straight lose to Inquisition, or do you think there is... do you think there's play there? And again, is it map dependent? I know it's crit dependent already, but what do you think their weakest like matchups are?
So I don't think they have a losing matchup into any team in the game currently. I think their hardest matchups are Inquisition, Angels of Death, and Nemesis Claw. And for Inquisition, it's very both map and crit dependent. So, like I was saying before, on missions like Transmission or Power Surge, where I can stay off the board the whole turn and then come out like last activations just to score the crit op, it's way easier for me. And against Inquisition, the matchup basically just comes down to that and whether or not the Mystic buff Meltas do enough damage. So if like the one Melta shot and like the Pistol Leader and Plasma shots don't go off, then they kind of fall apart and they don't have enough damage to deal with the Raveners. They rely on needing to get 1 or 2 kills before they lose those heavy hitters to try and win that matchup because they always max plant beacons. So that's essentially a free 9 points because you just take tack op, primary op, and then run plant beacons, 9 points. And they have to try and hold Raveners back long enough without dying.
Jesh, this is going to be a harder question to answer.
Okay.
Give me a typical like 2 turning point, because by the time like turning point 3 comes around, it's really hard to know like what's going to happen. Turning point 1 for Raveners is really simple in my opinion, right? For the most part, unless somebody gives up like some kind of crazy blast and you're like, okay, I guess my Venom Spitter is going to kill 4 of your models. I win. Thank you. Like that's going to kind of change stuff. But kind of like, what are the kind of like 2 first turning points that you're looking at? And like, give me a rundown of like the objectives, what you're looking for in a typical, the first 2 turning points. And if you feel comfortable talking about like a generalized turning point 3, to try and to help guide people into like how strong this team actually is. It definitely requires a play style. It's not just like, hey, I just win.
Right.
It's not Space Marine team. Go ahead.
Yeah, so turn 1, it's like you said, it's fairly simple. You just move the Prime. It's generally going to be the Prime because he's the best defensive model to your home point safely. Then you go with the Venom Sitter. You just end your sack. You move up unless your opponent, like you said, gives you some random crazy blast shot. And then you're just going to pass with all the dudes in the tunnel. That's turn 1. You move up 2 guys, and everyone else in the tunnel's like, I'm just going to sit here. Obviously, that changes if your opponent gives you some like key charge or shot. But turn 2 is kind of tricky. A lot of it matters on where you position the tunnel. On the longboards, where you can actually have your tunnel on the middle point by turn 2, you want to make sure that tunnel marker is within 2 inches of the entire objective. And then basically what you're doing is first activations, your
Tremor Scythe.
Yeah, for the Tremor Scythe. And then what you're doing for the first activations is your leader can loot, secure whatever mission it is for your home point. And then you're kind of just waiting out. And the last activation is always going to be the Tremor Scythe unless your opponent gives you an interrupt early on. Because for this team, you rely on trying to draw your opponent out. So what you can do, let's give it like a hypothetical here. Let's say you're playing on secure, which is like one of their bad missions. Then what I like to do is have one of the models that you normally keep in the tunnel on the board for turn 2. Let's say you're Stealth Talon, and what you do is you move on the point, you secure, and then you go in the burrow. And your opponent can take that back, but at the cost of giving you an anchor. So you're gonna move tap point with that guy, go in the burrow. Leader can just hang on your home point, tap the tunnel, and then you can just pass these other dudes. And once you're out of activations, then your Tremor Slice can still interrupt for counteracts. And if your opponent at all moves on to the point, then your Tremor Slice can interrupt and just sit in control range. And
he also can do damage, right?
Right. You can come out. It depends, because if they come out within, there are some boards where there's like a heavy terrain, kind of like in the middle of the middle objective. So you can't really get a tunnel somewhere where you can drop out in control range if they're on the right part of the objective. So you might have to pop out charge. In that case, you couldn't do damage. But you're kind of trying to draw out your opponent as much as possible without just giving them a model to shoot. And it comes down to your counteracts, mostly. Because if they don't go on the middle point, then you automatically just score 2 for crit op. And if they do, you can come out of the burrow in control range and just sit there and then just start piling into your opponent.
Now, an interesting thing with a question with these guys is, I think, oh gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. G, save me for a second before I forget it.
Of course. We're trying to save his train of thought right now. A lot of guys with this stuff.
So when do you find yourself? So we got through the first 2 turning points. When do you find yourself using the Wrecker? Now, I did see in the final game you charged the Patriarch, and you lost. You lost the Wrecker to the Patriarch. It was a very spicy moment in the game for anyone who has not seen it yet.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty crazy, you know? Because that dude is hard to kill. He's actually probably one of my favorite operatives on the team just because of how hard he is to kill. I find myself like he's probably the key operative just because of how hard he is for me, for my play style. I know that you really like sounds like your favorite one is the Tremor Scythe, right? Or the Fell Talon?
I like the Fell Talon, but I also really like the Wrecker.
Okay. That's fair. He also looks the coolest in my opinion, or one of the coolest.
Yeah.
What do you find yourself? How do you find yourself using the Wrecker? Because when I used him, I just kind of set him on a back objective. I was going against, I remember my question now, by the way. I kind of held him back because I didn't realize the power of dude. I didn't even know when I first played this team that you had to spend an extra APL near an objective marker to tap a point. I had no idea. How do you find yourself using the Rekka? And then I will ask you my question that I forgot before.
Yeah, so at the tournament, he's kind of like, since he doesn't have any special abilities other than reducing damage, excuse me, my bad.
And crush.
Yeah, so if you need a model to actually draw your opponent out rather than relying on the crit up to draw your opponent out, then he's the best choice, because if you put him on the tunnel, on the middle point, and just like sit him there instead of going in the tunnel, sorry, I'm like dying right now. He'll have relentless 4-up defense saves, and then he's reducing all damage of 4 or higher. So he's like really hard to kill. And what I've thought about after the tournament is he actually might be better defending the home point, like you mentioned, because the leader on the attack with the no rerolls, the +1 APL for mission actions, and the -1 for control is really strong in the crit op. And he is equally as good on the defense as the leader because he's so hard to kill.
And he does a lot of damage.
And he does a lot of damage. The problem with him on the attack is that Crush is kind of dicey. The Crush rule is essentially where when you are fighting with the Wrecker, every time you strike with a dice, you both roll off. So you roll 1 dice. And if you roll higher than your opponent, they take damage equal to the difference to a maximum of 3. So let's say you crit them for 5, and then you both roll off, and you roll a 5 and they roll a 1. They take 8 damage instead of 5 because maximum 3 additional damage.
One of the few operatives still in the game being able to do 8 damage.
Yep.
Yeah. It is on a dice roll.
And
yes.
yeah. The thing for me is though is that I always roll really bad with the crush. So it's like it's a fun ability, but it's like really dicey. So I think he
Right.
could be a better operative on the home point, and then your leader attacks. I think that's also kind of mission dependent though, because if you're playing coordinates or sabotage where your opponent really just wants to hit your home point, then your leader kind of needs to be there for the Grizzly Mark aura.
Yeah. Now I remember my question. I noticed that you said Inquisition, the matchups that are hard into was Inquisition.
Right.
Help me with the other two. It was
Angels of Death and Nemesis Claw.
Now,
Yes.
those are probably your team's best teams that I know of, outside of maybe Brood Brothers or Exaction Squad. You heard me, Kellen. Why not Sanctifiers? I know Sanctifiers have not been like heavily picked up on the West Coast. They are disgusting. For instance, if I was going for a golden ticket, Jeshua, you'd probably have to play me at events with Sanctifiers.
Yep.
Why do you think that Raveners have a good matchup into Sanctifiers currently?
I think that Raveners spank Sanctifiers like a toddler. It's like, get down.
I wholeheartedly agree. Like,
Yeah?
just from like a non-expert perspective, like my own, how are you going to set up your alpha strike? What are you shooting at? Nothing. What are you going to lead the procession to? The middle so that this guy can hit you a bunch? Okay. What are they going to do? Nothing.
They're going to say, you
That's
can't
how I
fight.
look at it.
Okay, I'm going to stab you with my tail, I guess.
Yeah.
And the main problem that Sanctifiers have into Raveners is that they have just a bunch of flamers. They have one Melta, but everything else is like flamers, and then they have chainswords.
Mhm.
But Raveners have relentless saves, and they have 20 wounds. So Sanctifiers basically strictly just do not have enough damage to remove Raveners off the board.
I mean, that's fair. You know, they do have like
Yeah.
two Meltagun people. Kind
They
of.
have one Meltagun person. Oh, they have the Miraculous.
They do.
yeah.
They have like two Melta-es.
But that's the thing is like you can one shot the miraculous and then disappear, and then you're like, now cool. It doesn't matter if you have your one wound left. I'll come get you later. Like,
Yeah, and the other issue is that Sanctifiers don't have rerolls for their shooting. So like a 4-up Melta, I'm pretty much always going to live against a 4-up Melta.
That's fair.
the likelihood is harder for them to kill these guys.
Especially if you're taunting them with the Ravener, the Wrecker.
I was surprised when
Yeah.
you said Angel's Death, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized you can dish out enough damage in one round of Angel of Death. Like a Space Marine could do enough damage to take someone out. The more I
Yeah,
think
so
about it.
to get into the other matchups that I mentioned, Angels of Death is tough specifically because they're basically all the same stats. They all have piercing shooting, like piercing bolt pistols, piercing crits bolt pistols, and they all have dueler aggressive chainswords. So they can do just widespread damage across the board, and they have enough damage output. You have to play heavily on the tack op and crit op to try and beat them, because they're probably going to kill you more than you kill them.
I did
That's
see
what
that.
it's-
I think Azzy took the golden ticket and playing Space Marines,
did.
which I was very surprised considering I thought they were dead. And then I was also surprised that he took aggressive dueler, but aggressive now is his main. And dueler, what did he end up pairing into playing Space Marines? Because here's the crazy thing: I found out a lot of people on the East Coast don't play dueler, never played dueler, which surprised the shit out of me because that's everything that everyone did on the West Coast. And then also, like Azzy did really well with dueler that got super nerfed. What was he taking? Just a quick tangent, you know?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that if he didn't run dueler as a secondary, he would switch it into like Hardy. I tried talking him into mobile, but apparently it just doesn't come up that much, so it's not really as useful. But he would either switch into Hardy or Resolute, depending on what he needed. Resolute into teams that have heavy stun. And his strat with the aggressive dueler combo is you can't double pair anymore, but if you're fighting models that need to parry you out, you can use normals to block their crits, and now they can't parry your crits. So you can just kind of, you just knock their crits away, and then you have free damage, which is how he runs the aggressive dueler combo.
That's fair. That's fair. It's rather interesting seeing. I think more now than ever, though. I think AOD definitely suffer from pilot skill level. As he's obviously an amazing Space Marine player, and he's been coming to a lot of our events, playing Space Marines in particular, these large events, playing very well and doing very well. So, he's obviously very good with the team. But I don't know if everyone can be there. I guess time will continue to tell. I think they still have a 41% win rate. But, Raveners also just have a 50%. What do you think is the main thing that people do wrong with Raveners, Jesh? And what do you think is like the main headspace to be in while playing this team to be successful with them? Because there are certain teams that you just want to be super aggressive. Then you want to be I don't know if Nemesis Claw want to be super aggressive right now, because apparently they're also pretty good. Apparently my take was wrong, but they want to be a little more counterpunch. What is kind of your thought process to make Raveners good?
So I think the main thing with Raveners thought process wise is you have to be willing to know that for the first few turning points, your opponent's going to have a point lead most of the time. You have to know that they're going to have a point lead, and it's going to look like you're doing bad until the last activations of turn 4. Because since you're only 5 operatives and you have 5 up saves, if you're trying to score crit op aggressively turns 2 and sometimes even 3, then you're just going to get shot off the board. So you just have to be willing to give up those points.
Okay, that's a good mindset.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was just reading our. For anyone who doesn't know, we record these live for our patrons. Shout out to our patrons. David just asked how big our dorsal sack was. I can tell you, this one's pretty large and it's inflamed and red. So be careful, David. Be careful what you ask for. Just saying. Giacomo, do you have any questions?
No, but I want to hear more about the Nemesis Claw matchup.
Yeah.
Is it similar to AOD, even though you don't have chapter tactics, because they just innately have a lot of really aggressive melee abilities?
Yeah, I think Nemesis Claw is worse for Raveners than AOD, because AOD are just kind of stats, whereas Nemesis Claw have the tricks. With Vox Dream and the Ventriloquar, it makes the matchup kind of difficult, mainly because if you ever try and do what I was talking about, where you set up a model to move, tap point, and hide, or try and draw them out by putting a model in the middle point, the Ventriloquar just dashes in the open, and then they just shoot you to death. Because you can't do anything. Even if it's a ready operative, they dash you in the open, then they Vox Dream you, and then they melt you. So if you have any operatives moved up the board at all, they can just essentially kill them for free. Or not for free, but almost for free. And it's really hard to play around. You kind of give up a lot of points. More points than normal turns 2 and 3. Just because they have so many threats.
I've totally forgot about the Ventriloquar. You just moving you out of your tunnel if you're right on top of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we got a practice game in, and that's exactly what happened. The other thing is with niche specificalities for the Tremor Scythe, his interruption. You cannot interrupt someone if they move less than 2 inches for a move action. So elites can actually get around the Tremor Scythe by moving barely outside of 2 inches and then dashing within 2, less than a 2-inch dash. And then you can tap the point, and then Nemesis Claw can pay a CB to run away turn afterward. So they can get the point without you hitting them, and then they can run away without you hitting them. It's just basically the game of who can strike and run away faster.
Okay, interesting. Very fun. I have 2 other questions about one question is about one of the most played teams right now, and that's Blades of Cain. I wish I was going to Nova. I was planning on it. I have too many things currently happening on the West Coast. I have to cancel my plans for Nova. unfortunately. But you know, this will be my first time in like 3 years I haven't gone. Unfortunate. I was going to be bringing Mono Scorpion Blades of Cain. I think I have. They were going to be blue because I'm colorblind. I know that you guys can't see them, but I finished one leg. And then I was like, okay, I can't make it. I'm not going to paint them anymore. Not for a little while.
Yep.
So Blades of Cain are a very popular faction right now, and there's another faction I'll go touch on after you give me your kind of like Blades of Cain thought process, because I know Jason, who's on your team, plays them very, very well. Have you got any matches into Blades of Cain? Or theoretically, how do you think that they handle blades comparatively?
So I have not played into Blades of Cain with Raveners, but I think Raveners also spank Blades of Cain. I think they spank all elf teams.
Because of 8 wounds?
Yeah.
Because of 8 wounds, because of less bodies, and because they, at least Blades of Cain, don't have any piercing options. They can double shoot once or twice per turn, but I don't think it's enough because you have rending, but if you don't have piercing, I have relentless defense saves, and it just gives me, like, out of 6 dice, you're making generally 2 or 3 5-ups. So you save a lot more than you think you would with 5-up saves. So they don't really have enough damage. And if they charge you, you can fight first if you're positioning your guys in the tunnel. So they just die on the charge. And I just don't see how they eat through 5 20 wound operatives.
Okay. My next question is for Harlequins. Now, I did see one Harlequins player at the event, and they played. There was the faction that I saw that used to dominate, and there seemed to be struggling immensely into certain teams. That would be Plague Marines. Plague Marines seem to really, really struggle into Harlequins now, which is not something they used to struggle into, just because they used to force Harlequins to hit them worse and yada yada.
Right, because of contagion.
Yeah. Harlequins do seem to be pretty strong. Again, they only have 8 wounds, so they could just get 2 shot by a Ravener. But they do have like fusion pistols and other tricks and stuff. How do you think Raveners pair into a really good Harlequin player?
I haven't thought about that matchup too much. The difficulty there is they have a really hard time scoring the crit up against Raveners. Harlequins can take recon, I believe, so they can take plant beacons and they can score the attack up pretty easily. But they'll just get swarmed turns 3 and 4, and they can't. If I focus down, like they have 2 or 3 heavy hitters, once those models die, they can't really do anything.
Yeah, you can focus.
They don't really have the same.
You can fight twice if you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they don't really have the same melee tools as Blades of Cain because they can take banshees, which make you hit worse, and they can do like the Harlequins can do this for a CP, but banshees can do the strike, fall back, shoot. So if you get like 2 crits, you can crit, fall back, rending pistol, and Harlequins melee just isn't as good because it's 4/5. You don't have power weapons. And I don't see them surviving against I don't think any elf team surviving against the overrun that they have turns 3 and 4.
Okay. Now, you used to play Warp Coven a lot. They've got a couple nerfs. Do you think that Warp Coven is actually bad now? I know that your brother's playing them now, and he's doing very well with them. They don't seem to be bad, but obviously Raveners are, in my opinion, the best elite team in the game, probably followed by Nemesis Claw. What do you think about their matchup into Warp Coven? And do you think Warp Coven's fallen off? Do you think they're still S tier? What do you think about them?
I think Warp Coven have finally dropped out of S tier. I think they're definitely at the very least still like top of A tier in that area. They're still a very good team, but they have enough bad or iffy matchups now that I don't think they qualify for S. And then Raveners into Warp Coven. I think Raveners into elites in general is tough. The main thing with Warp Coven, though, is that they lost their melee. They don't really have heavy-hitting melee. So once you do get in there, they can't get you out. Which is their main problem to Raveners.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Goremongers is the next team I kind of want to touch on a little bit. Goremongers is a very popular faction. So what are your typical strategies that you will employ against a Goremonger player? They have a flamer. they don't take a lot of damage when shooting. I know that this team doesn't have a ton of shooting, but the dorsal sack is still a strong ploy. It's still a strong dude.
So I have yet to actually play against Scoremongers with Raveners, but I think the main thing is that Raveners have a lot of ways to do damage before fighting. So whereas normally any model in the game would take at the very least 3 hits to kill a Goremonger, you can either use your Burrowing Strike Firefly ploy or the Toxic Lunge with the Venom Spitter, or not Venom Spitter, sorry, the Fell Talon, or like if someone dies, you can blow up on death. If you use any of those things, then Goremongers fall into that 2-tap range, and you're killing them without taking nearly any damage, especially since you heal D3 every time you activate. So I think the main thing that helps them into Goremongers is the fact that they all have 3-up bull pistols. So like let's say you don't even have to like charge fight, you move up, tap point, and then just get damage on someone. And with their healing nerfs, they're not going to heal enough to get out of that 2-tap range. So when they're fighting you, you can either fight first, or you're just not taking that much damage because you can 2-tap them.
Okay. So now, for anyone who doesn't know, Jeshua did main Goremongers for quite some time. So even though he hasn't played against this particular matchup, he is very, very good with the team. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. And I think that's good to keep in mind as well, is that even if Jesh says that he hasn't played against this team, this guy doesn't he eats, sleeps, and drinks kill team and chess, essentially, there's another team. Giacomo, is there any other team before I continue on? Because I'm going to go to an S tier composition next. An S tier team.
No
question.
I have a throwaway question.
Okay.
Since I believe Jeshua is good enough to figure this out. All right. I know you'll never run into this, but let's say you were to play on Beta Decima. How would you make that work?
Oh God. How do the tunnel rules work on that? Can you just not tunnel into the middle of the board?
I don't think you can. No. Not into the water parts, right?
Not onto Vantages.
Oh, that's lovely. I think then, if that's the case, Raveners might just get kind of cooked on Beta Decima.
I think so.
They kind of just cry and like rock back and forth in their little non-existent tunnel.
Well, on Turning Point 3, you could like get to one other side of the board because typically they're like this. But if all objectives are up on Vantages, yeah, you're kind of cooked.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, that just seems like a very hard time for Raveners.
That's fair. Now, interesting thing. Exaction Squad. Everyone is super kind of hyped about Exaction Squad. Because they seem like they're finally good. They're doing stuff. They're strong in the meta, kind of. And I played against Exaction Squad and I lost to our man, Alexander Popov. Now, because my leader couldn't kill his damn shield dude. It was so frustrating. I was so mad. What is your, I was like, okay, I now know how to play into Exaction Squad. I just shoot them with pistols and they die. It's really simple. Yep. Why would I charge them? I just fall back for 2 and shoot them with a pistol, Dakotah. Don't be a ding dong, What do you think? Do you think that you would just fall back and just kill them with your tail? And then free burrow or something like that? How do you think you deal with the shield guys who just keep parrying? Because I can tell, I don't think 5 attacks is enough. They're double parries. It's really frustrating.
Well, for one, the record just does not care about that, because as long as you have 1 hit, or not 1 hit, 1 crit, then you just do 8 damage on 1 hit. You just boom, dead dude.
Okay. And then you have your poison. Then you have your poison Fell Talon, right?
Yeah, you can do D3+2. So if you charge one and then do D3+2, there's a pretty decent chance they'll die before they get to fight you.
Okay.
Because they'll take D3 from the poison as well when they activate.
Right.
I think the main thing into Exaction is that they fight first and they double parry, but they hit on 4s. Do they have a ceaseless ploy? A ploy to give them ceaseless and melee?
They probably. I mean, I don't know the team. They confuse me sometimes because they're like, I'm going to stack these 5 buffs onto your one guy, and then it would be really funny to be like, cool. Now I'm gonna let you burn all your command points on this one guy, and then I'm gonna burrow.
Yeah, you're never seeing this dude again.
I'm surprised Giacomo did not laugh at that one. I thought it was funny. That was a good one.
Smiled.
Yeah, I think the the main problem is that since you can get damage before you fight, they only have 8 wounds. So even if they are double parrying, you only hit them once and they die.
Okay, fair. There's another interesting thing. A lot of people are talking about Navy Breachers at the moment. I still think the better way to play Navy Breachers, if you're going to play them, is still in Inquisition. But, they do have the GA2 end of act, at the beginning of Turning Point 2. You can throw your thing up 16 inches up the board and blow it up. It's like
the guy skull.
The new
The guy
cheese.
skull, yeah.
We'll see if that survives the next balanced data slate. Play it while you can. Do you think that, obviously, I don't think it's as good because these guys have 20 wounds, firstly. Secondly, you're not really going to get a blast off against a lot of these guys. What do you think the Navy Breacher matchup is into Felgor? The Felgor. That's my next question. Yeah, the Rav.
I think that they're in kind of a similar boat as Sanctifiers. They have the damage reduction and like the defensive power, but they have a little bit more than Sanctifiers because they have a couple power weapons and they have 2 gunners instead of 1, plus a Grenadier. Mm-hmm. So I think they do better into Raveners than Sanctifiers, but I think it just comes down to, again, they don't have enough damage output to remove enough of the Raveners. Because their shooting is still 4-ups. They'll have Ceaseless, unlike Sanctifiers. But the Guy Skull stunning a dude isn't going to matter too much, because if you're doing that turn 2, it's a turn where I'm passing with like all my dudes anyway. So it's only 3 forward, lethal 4 stun. So it's going to do some damage, but I don't even think it'll injure a Ravener if I'm on my tunnel, which I will be. I will be on my tunnel.
You can also Ceaseless on Turning Point 2. So all of your cover saves I don't know if it gives cover or not. I'm not sure. I don't know if I saturate.
Well, yeah, they automatically have double retained cover saves most of the time if you take it for the equipment, which you almost always do. And then they'll have relentless defense saves as long as they're on their tunnel. So they're actually tougher in shooting than they seem. So with Breachers, as long as you're not playing and giving them too many shots, I think they just kind of fall apart like Sanctifiers do.
Okay.
They definitely have a much better matchup. The main problem for them, though, is like tack up. Their tack up's difficult into Raveners.
That's fair. Yeah, because you can just get to the other side of the board and you can't remove them. So my final faction question is going to be on Raveners. Raveners versus Felgor Ravagers.
Yep.
That's a difficult thing to say. Ravagers, the Felgor Ravagers just won an event, surprisingly.
Really?
They did. They went 5-0 or 6-0 or something like that. I think it was 5-0.
Wow.
There's 2 5-0s, I believe, at that event, or there was a 4-1. They didn't have a single undefeated there. Or I would say that not all top players played against each other. There was one guy who had a tie and a bunch of wins, and then the guy who won was the Felgor player who had a bunch of wins. This was in the Midwest. What do you think the Felgor matchup is into Raveners, specifically because I think that it's more difficult because you can kill them and then they stay alive, right? So they can charge you again. Damage. They could do more damage, so it's a little bit more difficult, but you can fall back at the beginning of a turning point and burrow, and then they could frenzy and do nothing. That's possible, but theoretically it is a harder matchup for the Raveners. What do you think?
I haven't thought about that before, but I could see it being difficult because when you fight them, let's say they do 5 wounds in the punchback, and then they'll get to fight again and do 5 more wounds. So each Felgor could potentially do 10 wounds for the kill. I think the main thing you have to do there is, since they have 5-up saves, you just you tail whip them all the time. Like you take an ammo cache and you put it in the middle, and you just like keep tail whipping them and like, okay, come fight me when you're frenzied. Boom, boom.
Crack grenades.
Yeah. Also, the Wrecker's tail whip has piercing, so that makes it pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, if you are hitting a lot of the operatives with the thing, with their, that's the main thing into Felgor Ravagers, right? Gosh, it's so hard to Ravagers.
They're very close.
you can do a lot of shooting damage to them beforehand with these guys, so that when they activate, then they just die and then they lose and then they just frenzy out and they just go away, rather than you charging and killing models. And it's interesting. I think it's a very interesting one. And I have one more thing. I have one. If these guys could get one rule change, I'm going to ask you both. And then Giacomo, any other questions you want to lead out with?
Sure.
If there's any kind of a rule change that you could request from the rules designers themselves about the Raveners, what would it be? Either one of you could answer first. You guys to answer, because I have one.
I would like 2 different spots of where the tunnels could start. Personally,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I would add, because I think the team is mostly pretty good from my limited knowledge. I think it'd just be fun to be able to pick, like, this is where my tunnels are going to start.
That's fair.
I think I talked about this with some people after my last matchup, like with Kellen. It seems like they just need less wounds. Like, I don't think you need 5 guys with 20 wounds. Like 18 wounds is probably gonna help a lot with the breakpoints, because they're just like too durable, especially since they're just never on the board.
Leave them alone, Jeshua. Stop asking the developers for a nerf. Okay, here's mine. Okay, you guys ready for mine? Mine is the best. It's the best rule, and everyone's going to agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, and you are listening to this, go into our Discord and tell me why I'm wrong. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, tell me why I'm wrong, because I can tell you right now, you're wrong. You are so wrong. I am looking for the Ravener v. Ravener matchup. I want to go into my homie's tunnels, right? I want to go into the other person's tunnels and have a whack-a-mole game where both players are going into each other's tunnels and popping out all over the place, right? I don't want to have your tunnel pasted across every single line of text. I just want it to say tunnel so that I can go in and I can go and we can just have a really fun game. That is what I want. I want that single word changed. I want your taking out of tunnel and just tunnel.
I think you're absolutely right. Also, if you're inside the tunnels, like your enemy's tunnels, you should be able to fight them. Like, you just go, you're having fighting.
You just get a pick a guy, yeah.
So models that aren't on the board are just dying, just like randomly. Like, they just come out when they're not even there.
So the real question is, they just revealed the Sisters of Battle versus the Warp Talon, and then there's the double layer, kill zones now, where they have like half a board, half your models are on that, and half the board, half the models on the other one. Raveners, if you tunnel, are you on the lower board? Or are you in between? I'm just saying, there's almost only so much space in the kill zone stuff, James Workshop, all I'm saying, think about it, everyone. If you guys could see a change to Raveners, what would it be? That's a good question.
Let them drop them in the comments.
Jess, did you want to go over anything else with the team, or do you think that we touched on everything?
One more thing is that I had talked amongst certain people, and originally thought that Gellerpox might actually be a difficult matchup for Raveners, because essentially it's just like there are 9 20 wound models on the board. So it's like it's interesting, and Gellerpox have the Screaming Rust Spikes tech infection. So I think here's where the misconception happened, because I thought it could be a bad matchup for Raveners, because my interpretation of the Screaming Rust Spikes rule was, for every miss that your opponent rolls, they take 1 damage, or if it's the infected objective, then 2 damage per miss. But it's only 1 damage for any misses. So if you roll any misses, it's 1 damage total. So I don't know if that's I don't know if it was just me who misinterpreted that, but I think that under that note, Gellerpox is also fine, even though there's like 20 wound upon 20 wound models everywhere.
So for me, I think that Raveners have the heads up against Gellerpox. Now I could be wrong. You're going to be running in. You might run into the best Gellerpox player in the world at Nova, right? Orion Wilfing.
Right.
That's very possible. Very possible. He's very
Right.
good. I'd love to see that match if you end up playing him. But they do have the infection aura where now you're hitting on 4s instead of 3s. They bring back the plague marine original rule, right? Which they never should have got rid of in the first place. So that does make things a little bit more difficult. But the reason why I think these guys are good into them is because you have a 7-inch move. You're way faster than them. You can kind of teleport all over the place, and you can really focus on just killing the little guys. The number one way you always beat Gellerpox, right, is by killing the small guys. They do all the objectives. They do all those kinds of things. You could essentially leave the big dudes alone, because what are they going to do? Stand on a point and use both their APL to tap a point? Cool. They're not going to do anything else. You know what I mean? If you can, with Raveners, go run around and kill all the little dudes, and that's how I would play Vet Guard back in the day and all these other kind of guys. That's the main way to beat them. In my opinion, you do have to typically play into a good Gellerpox player differently than you would play into a normal player. But that would be my first guess, is that Raveners could still take them. Could you beat Orion? That's another question. The dude. Yeah, the dude's like, I mean, we have him on our last episode. If you guys want to check that out, it's our tier list video, which he took over our podcast and made me cry. He literally made me cry in tears of laughter.
Yeah,
so did Giacomo. Funny. So did Giacomo, near the Nemesis Claw part, if anyone's wondering. But I agree, Jesh. They could be difficult depending on who's running them. They could be.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is that it's always ideal to try and target the bugs. That if you're playing against someone who's good enough at positioning and runs Gellerpox at like the higher level, then they're not going to let you get the little guys. They're only going to give you the option to fight the big guys, which you generally don't want to do because they are making you hit worse. I think the main thing that Raveners have to rely on is their tail whips and the Venom Spitter. Because the Venom Spitter with his shooting could just delete a Nightmare Hulk. He's like, okay, 5 on 3s, 4, 5, leave the 5 piercing, dead.
Yeah, you could also do your little poison things against them as well.
The poison's also good.
Yeah, and coming out of tunnels and doing all that shenanigans. There's a lot of tools this team has.
Yeah.
Very fascinating. I would love to see that. Maybe you should practice that once or twice. If you think you're going to do well at Nova, you very well may run into him. So, just word of thought, And same to you, Orion. If you're watching this, maybe you should play into some Ravener games, just saying. Maybe. Giacomo, do you have any closing thoughts or shout outs that you want to do?
I have one question real quick for the shout outs. Is Orion actually taking Gellerpox? Did he lock that in?
I think he wants to.
I would imagine.
What if he's playing Raveners?
He could.
Oh.
I mean,
he has that energy where he would play like the Maverick team, and Raveners currently feel like the Maverick team to take.
Nah, dude. If he's gonna take another team, it's gonna be Vespids, bro. Because he's been playing the crap out of Vespids. The interesting thing about Vespids is that when he plays Vespids, they're also Tyranid themed. He modeled them like Tyranids, but he just deletes most other teams at the beginning of Turning Point 3 because you can play Vespids really aggressively and just delete a bunch of models. But I think they have a really hard time. I think he said last time into Harlequins. So,
Phobos.
And Phobos. Yeah. I mean, what other... Has he brought any other teams? What I'm mostly interested in is I want to see what Jimmy Kelly's bringing to Nova as well. That's an interesting. You can never ask Jimmy, your father, Jeshua. You can never ask him because he never knows what he's going to take, and he says like, "Oh, I'm going to take this team. I'm going to take this team." I think the next day, and then at the event, he's literally just playing a different team. He's like, "Yeah, I just decided to bring Hunter Clade because
like 2 hours ago, I read the team's rules 2 hours ago, and I thought, you know what, I'm taking them to Nova.
I'm bringing scouts. It's like, okay, Jimmy.
I hope he takes Nemesis Claw.
I
think he's either going to take Nemesis Claw or Hunter Clade. I'm pretty sure.
Hunter Clade's such a wild one. I can't believe it.
Yeah, Hunter Clade's pretty good, you know. He was playing them at Midsummer Mayhem, got second place with them, and he said that the 3 gunners and the 4 Sicarians, the 1 leader and whatever, is a very good, very, very good. But he did say the mental load was immense, and you look like he's gonna, pass out a couple times just from the mental, all the 1s and 0s in his head,
Yeah.
I think like there's other teams that you can bring and do just as well with a skill level of somebody like his. It just depends on how hard he wants to stress his mind and his body, that's why I don't take like high mental load teams, like why would I want to just take Raveners and have
That's
fun?
the benefit with Raveners. Raveners have 5 bodies and they're just big 21 Unga Bungas. So like almost no mental load.
Yeah.
That's
like,
why elites are the best teams.
Yeah, your mental load is like when to come out of the tunnels, when to counteract, when to do damage, how to kind of cheese some of those ploys, right? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned today, right? And then kind of like where to station your models and how to attack them. That would be like my summary of what I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
You have anything else, fellas?
Nope.
I'll let Jesh do his shout outs first if he wants.
Okay.
I'll shout out Kel Team, the men in purple.
Hell yeah.
We haven't been doing social media recently, but I think it's probably about time we started. So, you should check out the men in purple, Kelsey. Yeah.
There you go.
Hell yeah. All right. You guys are first in the in ITC for a reason. You guys are a very strong team. Giacomo, do you have any shout outs, my guy?
Of course, you can join the conversation by joining the Discord or leaving a comment here on YouTube. And feel free to follow and subscribe as well, because that always helps us out too. Check out our other stuff we have on YouTube, such as the Hobby Highlander or, the recent tier list that we did, in case you're curious about that. And of course, when more Kill Team stuff drops, we're going to cover it. That's where you can find us out there. And then, of course, we're going to be running LVO. So if you don't have your tickets for LVO, you should consider getting them soon. We have a link in the description if you're listening to this on a podcast service, or if you're watching it on YouTube. We have the narrative and we have the competitive. The competitive is 3 days. The narrative is also 3 days, or is that just a 2-day? I can't quite remember. And we have a charity event on Thursday. It's a fundraiser, not a charity. Fundraiser, not a charity. It's a fundraiser. So if you want to come to that, we'll have cool events for you to do there, and all the proceeds help us make more stuff for you guys and to better up our services that we provide for all the players. So yeah, that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're trying to get a couple upgrades for the studio here to make painting videos and battle reports a little easier for us. I would like to shout out some of the same stuff that Giacomo just did. And one more. We have the Hobby Highlander brushes. If I can move this to the other side, that is the whole screen, Dakotah. We have the Hobby Highlander brushes here. They are an amazing paintbrush range. We've been selling quite a few, so make sure that you guys try to grab a set of those. They're pretty good, and we've been, it's something that me and Giacomo both designed. Here is the very first mission to our narrative, right? There's a bunch of rippers in the med lab, and there's 9 missions, right? In our narrative for the Las Vegas Open. So make sure you grab your tickets, come see us, and come play in the world's largest event. We'll see if we can break that record again this year. I don't know if we can, because we had 169 players in January. I believe we're already sitting at nearly 100 with still a month and a half left to go. So make sure you grab your guys' tickets and come play either our awesome narrative that, I kid you not, we're just spending weekends and weekends and weekends of painting Tyranids and this dang terrain, right? A lot of fun. Looking forward to it. If you guys can't catch it there, we are running the narrative again in January and February out in Los Angeles, California. So those will be my shout outs. And until next time.
Thank you, patrons and viewers.
Shout out to Pub. Ooh.
Hey, we did it, yeah.
The Squad Games Podcast is a production of Squad Games Entertainment. For more information on Squad Games, please visit our website at squadgames.net or check out our YouTube channel at Squad Games Entertainment.